You know, when we think about the American West, we often imagine these grand stories of adventure and triumph. Well, this isn't one of those stories. Not at all. We're about to get into the tale of the Donner Party, and I've got to tell you, it's one of the most chilling episodes in American history. It's really a story about ambition, one really, really bad decision, and what happens when people are pushed to the absolute edge of survival.
So, this is the question, right? How far is too far to survive? This is what this whole story boils down to. It's a question they had to answer in the most horrifying way possible. And as we go through this, I want you to keep asking yourself that same question.
All right, so to really get why this all happened, you've got to picture America in the 1840s. It was this time of just massive optimism. People were buzzing about manifest destiny, this idea of expanding all the way to the Pacific. And the ultimate jackpot, the place everyone was dreaming about? California. And you know, the folks who set out on this journey, they weren't desperate people at all. This was a group of 87 pioneers, led by guys like George Donner and James Reed. These were successful middle-class families. We're talking farmers, businessmen. They had great wagons, tons of supplies. They were optimistic. They were basically chasing that classic American dream, a fresh start, free land, a better life in sunny California. And right here, this is the moment where everything changes. It all boils down to one single catastrophic decision. The choice to leave a perfectly safe, well-traveled road for a shortcut that nobody had really tested. Okay, so here's the choice they were facing. On one hand, you've got the Oregon Trail. Sure, it's longer, but it's reliable. Thousands of people had made it safely. Then, you have this other option, the Hastings Cutoff. It was in this hot new guidebook, and it promised to shave 350 miles off your trip. I mean, who wouldn't want that? But here's the catch, and it's a huge one. The guy who wrote the book, Lansford Hastings, he'd only ever done it on horseback, not with a whole train of wagons. And even though experienced mountain men literally told them, don't do it, they took the gamble. And wow, did that gamble backfire? Almost instantly. That shortcut wasn't a road to a better life. It was a one-way ticket straight into hell. So instead of saving time, they started losing it. Big time. First, they had to hack their own road through the dense Wasatch Mountains. Can you imagine? They were lucky if they made 2 miles a day. And just when they thought it couldn't get worse, they hit the desert. 80 miles. Let that sink in. 80 miles across the Great Salt Lake Desert. We're talking about a completely brutal, blistering landscape of salt flats. There's no water. There's no grass for their animals. Their oxen just started dropping dead, and with them went their wagons and all the precious food and supplies inside. And this is the truly devastating part. That shortcut, the one that was supposed to save them all that time, it ended up costing them an entire month, 30 days. 30 critical days they just could not afford to lose, because those 30 days put them on a collision course with an enemy they had absolutely no chance of beating. So they finally dragged themselves back to the main trail, completely exhausted, just totally demoralized. But it's too late, way too late. They are now in a flat-out race against winter itself, trying to get over the massive Sierra Nevada mountains before the snow flies. And the heartbreaking thing is, they were so close. I mean, they were right there at the final mountain pass, the last hurdle before they could just coast down into the safety and warmth of California. But then, on Halloween night, 1846, it started to snow. And it just didn't stop. These weren't normal storms. This was a freak weather event. It just dumped snow. In a matter of weeks, the pass was buried under 22 feet of snow. Can you even imagine? 22 feet. No way forward, no way back. They were trapped. So the 81 people still alive are now huddled in these miserable makeshift cabins near a frozen lake. And for the next 4 months, it's just unimaginable suffering. The food runs out almost immediately. They eat what's left of their livestock. Then they eat their dogs. Then mice. Then they're eating tree bark. They're literally boiling leather from their shoes and belts just to put something, anything, in their stomachs. And one by one, people started to die from the cold and the hunger. And this is where the story goes from a tragedy to a true horror story. Because as starvation really truly tightened its grip, their survivors were forced to look at each other and confront the ultimate taboo:
In mid-December, as a total last-ditch effort, 15 of the strongest people put on some crude snowshoes and set out to find help. They called themselves the Forlorn Hope, which tells you everything you need to know about their chances. They had almost no food. Within days, they were completely lost in blinding blizzards. And then, on Christmas Day, the first person died.
What happened next is the reason we still talk about the Donner Party today. Huddled together in the snow, freezing, starving to death, the Forlorn Hope made the decision. They ate the dead to survive. And this wasn't just them out in the wilderness. Back at the camps by the lake, the people trapped there were eventually forced to make the exact same impossible choice.
It took months, but rescue parties did finally make it through the snow. And the scene they found, I mean, it was just a scene of complete and utter horror. But the amazing thing, some people had survived. Against all odds, they were still alive. So when the final count was done, of those original 87 pioneers who took that fateful shortcut, 48 survived, just a little over half. But the really fascinating part of the story is when you look at who actually made it out alive. Get this, most of the adult men died. The people who survived were overwhelmingly women and children. It's something historians still talk about. Why? Well, there are a couple of theories. One is biological, that women's bodies with typically higher body fat percentages are just better suited to handle starvation. But another theory is that the men were the ones doing the really hard, dangerous labor, trying to hunt, trying to find a way out, and they just burned through their energy and risked their lives more often.
In the end, it took 4 different rescue parties to get all the survivors out of there, and the story, as you can imagine, became a nationwide sensation. It was like the ultimate horror story of the American frontier. And what about Lansford Hastings, the guy who wrote the guidebook, the man whose bad advice led to all this? Yeah, he never faced any consequences. But you can be sure of one thing, no wagon train ever tried to take his shortcut again.
And that brings us right back to where we started, trapped, freezing, watching the people you love starve to death. Remember, these were normal people, not so different from us. They just made one bad turn. And their story forces us to look in the mirror and ask that really, really uncomfortable question. If you were in their shoes, faced with that choice, what would you do?